The content-aware technology first appeared in Photoshop CS4 with the content-aware scale option. After that, in CS5, we got content-aware fill, and since then we now have content-aware move, and the same technology now is available on the spot healing brush tool as well, and even the patch tool. So what this actually means is Photoshop automatically samples images, and based on the content it tries to recreate areas, not just simply by stretching it or copy-pasting details, but by combining details in a way that it looks realistic. So let me show you one example here. This is going to be the content-aware move tool. I'm going to switch to the tool by right-clicking on the healing brushes or patch tool, and that's where you will find content-aware move tool. Now this might only be available in Creative Cloud, but I will show you that the patch tool can be used quite similarly to this. But for now, I'm just going to select it. And first of all, here on the top, you can see different options, either move or extend. I'm going to switch to move for this example. And notice we also have additional options here, including transform on drop, which is definitely only available in Creative Cloud. But once you make a selection, you will see exactly what happens. So when we have a selection of this guy, let's say I decided that my selection is not perfect, I can always press Q to improve the selection. So I can paint over these details that I didn't want to include in the selection, and press Q again, switch back to the same tool that we were using, the content-aware move tool, and then I just double check it's set to move. All right, then we just drag this guy, and let's say I wanted to place him here closer to the edge of this cliff. Let's say somewhere around there. Because we have the transform on drop selected, we can also rotate him slightly. So bend him a little bit over, as if he was really like leaning toward the edge. And then I press enter. And what happens is that Photoshop not only blends him into the new environment, but also removes him from the original detail. So if I remove my selection, you can see it did a pretty good job. The only detail is probably these stones here that I need to refine. But if I zoom out, you can see it did a really good job on that. So that was before, and this is after. So that was when we used the mode set to move. But I'm going to show you extend on another example. We can make a selection of the horse. So let me just make a rough selection, including the shadows of the horse as well. Like that. And switch to the content-aware move tool. So you can prepare a selection first and then switch to this tool. But instead of using move, now I'm going to switch to extend. So let's say I want to see two of these horses. So if I click and drag, you will see the option was turned on to transform on drop, which means I can hold down shift and make this horse smaller. I just place it somewhere there in the background, something like that. And maybe we can even place it closer to the edge. Probably somewhere around there would fit. So when I press enter, you will see that's a very fast way to duplicate details and also compose them into your image. Now if I undo this last step and instead of extend I switch to move, of course I can do the same thing. Move the horse to the side, press enter, and then it not only moves the horse but also removes it from the original details. Now this won't work with every example. It really depends on your selection and the image itself. If the image is cleaned up nicely and it has enough detail or reference area that can be used for sampling, then the result will be almost perfect. In other cases, it might be less successful. So let's see another example where we use content-aware technology for scaling. So here we have these lovely ladies with the tea garden, and I would like to turn this into a panorama. So I want to extend this image to the sides, because maybe I need to turn this image into a long banner, for example. So first of all, what I normally do is I unlock my background layer by clicking on the lock icon, switch to the crop tool, and extend the image, but have the delete crop pixels turned off. That way, the crop tool will just add transparency So it will fill those areas with transparent pixels. And then we will be able to stretch this layer. But instead of using the free transform tool, which would do the following, stretch every detail, I'm going to switch to the content aware scale option. So edit content aware scale. Now, once I start dragging it, similarly to content aware scale, it starts stretching the image, but it tries to concentrate on details like the background. Unfortunately, it also started distorting her, partially keeps some details the original, and some of the people in the background also stays without distortion. But if we turn this option on here, that can help to protect details on people. So it automatically finds people in the image and then makes sure it doesn't distort them as much. It still distorted her slightly, but it gives us a better result. But it can be done even better if we first create a selection. So let me just press escape. And before we actually use this, I'm going to create a quick selection. So using the quick selection tool, I will just quickly paint over this lady here in the foreground because she is definitely our main subject in this photograph. So I have my selection and then I go to select menu and save this. So I choose save selection and I'll just call her lady. Now I'm going to switch back to the content aware scale after I deselected my selection, and notice that next to the option to protect the skin tones or find people in the image, we also have the protect option with the selection we saved. So if I select that, now it will definitely not distort her in the middle. And also thanks to the protect tones option, it automatically found people in the image in the background and it's not distorting them either. So it will only stretch details in between them, which in this case looks almost perfect. So if I press enter, we can see before and after. So although I had these people in the background and also this lady in the foreground, I still managed to increase the width of this image without causing too much visible distortion. And any distortion I can see, I can always tidy up using healing brushes. Now last but not least, content aware can be used to fill in details as well, similarly to the spot healing brush, but this is what we use whenever there's more details that we need to go over. So let me switch to this example where I would like to remove the people from the background and some of these details, so mainly clean up this corner of the image. The option is under the edit menu within the fill option. So here under contents you can find content aware, but it only becomes available once you make a selection. Now one thing that you have to remember is that this only works on the actual layer where the image is. So again, this doesn't work on a separate empty retouch layer. You have to unfortunately use it directly on the layer. So that's a disadvantage compared to using the spot healing brush. But let's try this out. So what I normally do first is to make a big selection with the rectangle marquee tool over the area I'm interested in that I know will be replaced or improved, which in my case is this part here. So we don't have to see everything else in the image, only the area we would like to improve. And then turn this into a mask temporarily. So I click on the mask icon in the layers panel, which will turn that selection into a mask. Now I can switch back to the image, click on the thumbnail of the image. We can also zoom slightly closer. And then we can make a selection of the details we want to remove. You can do this one by one, or you can do it even all together and hope for the best. I normally use the lasso tool with anti-alias and a slightly higher feather option like 2 pixels, just to have a soft edge around our selections. So I'm going to select this detail first. And I press Q, you can see it has a soft selection. And then I can now press Shift Backspace, which is the shortcut for the Edit Fill option. So once I have that, we can see that the content aware option is now available. And I also keep the color adaptation on. So now I will click OK. And you see it will replace that detail. We can do the same thing with these people here. Let's try Shift Backspace, click OK. quite good replacement. Also, we can try these people here on the right, shift backspace and replace. So although it works quite well, you might still need to use the healing brush to tidy up some details. And of course, you can always delete the mask or shift click on the mask to see the whole image once again. Now, the reason why it was good to use a mask to focus on the area which can be used for replacement and the area that we wanted to improve is because that way Photoshop is not going to try to sample from anywhere else in the image. So we don't want parts of her to be copied over to the right side of the image. But personally, I actually prefer to use the patch tool instead of the content aware fill, which actually has the same option but works slightly differently and I would say more effectively. So let's say here we want to remove these branches from the foreground. We want to have a very clean image with just the girl and the sea. So first of all, you have to switch to the patch tool, which is again joined together with these healing brushes. Once that's selected, you can change from normal to content aware, create a separate layer, and turn on sample all layers. And that's why this technique is better already, because we can do it non-destructively on a separate layer. And just to go with the routine I got used to, I'm going to call this layer retouch. And then you go over the area which you want to replace and make a selection of it, just like using the lasso tool. But also very important that you need to increase the color value in the options bar. That's going to make sure that the detail will blend nicely into the new environment. Now you can drag and move it over to the other side where you see that you have good details for the replacement, and when you let go, it will create the blend. And with color set to the maximum value, it will be able to adapt the colors into the new area, and you can see how much better that looks already. So it's very important to play around with the color and even the structure options to find what works best with the replacement you are doing. So once again, let's try this detail here, drag it over there, and you will see even that one works already so much better. If you see any smaller details at the bottom, you can just touch that up with the spot healing brush tool, and then basically you are done. And everything has been done on a separate layer, completely non-destructively. So these were all the content aware features in Photoshop, which became essential part of retouching images. And in the next video, we arrive to the last tools I wanted to show you for retouching, and they are the dodge and burn tools.